Welcome to another episode of Legendary Leaders. I'm excited to have you with me for the month of September. We're going to be diving into a topic that we are all very familiar with, and that is the topic of burnout. And I am intentionally structuring this topic. I'm bringing it here at this point in the year because we are about to enter into the holiday season. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but we just got through Labor Day, right? And so we all know that once we get past Labor Day, it's like this massive slide to the end of the year. And we're going to be hitting all the holidays. Now, I'm not certain what holidays you celebrate, but if you don't celebrate any of them, at least you're going to have a lot of different things happening at work, and life is just going to get busier, no matter what you celebrate or don't celebrate. And that's just what happens at the end of the year. And the bottom line is this: when life gets busier and we have personal life demands and professional life demands, right? Like finishing out the year strong professionally, and they compete and they meet and they have equal importance in your life, that can create a higher risk for burnout. So we're going to spend the month talking through this topic, and I want you to commit right now. I want you to commit right now to spending this month with me, learning these strategies so that you're ready to prevent burnout or avoid burnout or even get out of burnout if that's the place that you're in right now. Will you commit to that? I want you to verbally answer me. I know that I can't hear you, but just pretend that I can. The important point is that you can hear you, and that's what matters. Because the reason why I want you to commit to this is because I want you to get what we teach here at Legend Leaders, which is helping you achieve the professional success you desire so you can have the personal freedom you deserve, right? That's what I want for you. And so if you want some of that, and that sounds like a really good something that you'd like to have in your life, then let's go ahead and dive into this topic. And please go ahead and commit to yourself, not to me, but to yourself, that you're going to spend this month learning the strategies around burnout so that you can take care of yourself and really enjoy the back half of the year. Okay? So before we dive into the how do I solve burnout, we've got to do a couple of things first, right? We've got to really understand what burnout is. So what is burnout? Well, you're probably familiar with it. You have an idea, but you know me, I like to take these sort of gray concepts that are in our brains and formulate and share an actual definition. And so the definition of burnout that I think we can all align on is this level of exhaustion that really impacts our ability to perform, and it also impacts our attitude, right? And it impacts our attitude about ourselves, and it impacts our attitude relative to the world around us, okay? So it's exhaustion that really affects the way that we show up in the world. It's probably the easiest way to say that. Now, that exhaustion can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be mental, it can be a combination of those three, or it can be all three, all right? And so that's the other thing to think about. Some people say, well, you know what? I'm just tired. I just haven't been getting enough sleep. And so that's not burnout. Well, it's physical exhaustion potentially. And so that's what I want you to be keenly aware of. Don't write off the fact that you could be in a state of burnout because you're uncertain of what burnout means. Now you understand the definition. Okay? So that's step number one. What's the definition? Exhaustion, impacting the way that we perform and the way that we look at ourselves and the world around us. Okay? That's the first thing. Now, how in the heck can we get into burnout? I mentioned the fact that when personal life and professional life collide and it's competing demands, we can run into an opportunity to have a high level of burnout. Let me tell you what I see most commonly in women just like you, just like me, that get into a state of burnout and how they get there. Okay. And it doesn't matter the time of year. It's just standardly what happens. And it's typically something that happens professionally. Okay. Because burnout, we really look at burnout through the lens of our professional careers, right? So typically what happens is we're running at this rapid pace. Okay. And we sacrifice personal time, family time, all these other things that are in our lives, right? Personal self-care time, right? Could just be mental downtime. Could be workout time. We sacrifice that time. We sacrifice family dinners. We sacrifice vacation time or kid events that we really want to show up to, right? Family events. We sacrifice those things because we think that we need to sacrifice that time in order to get through this anomaly, this exception that's happening in the business. Okay. Now, what I will tell you is that there are absolutely exceptions that happen in business. We've lived through all of those ourselves. We can point to times in our careers where, we normally work a typical schedule, but suddenly something happens and it's all hands on deck and we need to help, right? We need to drop what we're doing. We need to spend a little bit more time in our careers and we get everything on track. We put out that fire, so to speak, and then everything goes back to normal. That is an exception, and exceptions happen, okay? And what I like to call that is it's like a perfect storm week where everything just sort of hits you and you've got to stop everything and just really focus in on your career and what's happening in the business. You miss out on a couple of personal things, but you get through it. It's a very short period of time, maybe a week, no more than 2 weeks, and then everything's back to normal. Perfect storm, okay? That's what an exception is. Those exceptions typically don't result in burnout. What results in burnout is what I call a Groundhog Day perfect storm. Okay, now I just came up with that term, but I'm going to use it. A Groundhog Day perfect storm. What's Groundhog Day? Where you relive the same events over and over and over in your career or in your day, right? So in your work day, you show up, you sacrifice, you're like, oh, I'm glad that's over with. You wake up the next morning, okay, and you do it again, right? And so a Groundhog Day perfect storm is not an exception. It's not a week. It's not up to 2 weeks. It's just this constant sacrifice. It's this never-ending situation where you're showing up and having to give more and more and more of yourself, and you can't give anymore. Now, the reason that we typically get into this situation is because we think that we're facing an exception. We think we're facing just that perfect storm week. And we can all handle those perfect storm weeks because, again, just like I had you think about a second ago, we can all point to exceptions in our careers where we had to stop, we had to let go of some personal things, sacrifice for a little bit, put ourselves into the business, spend a little extra time in there, and then everything got back to normal and we were fine. Well, that's not the case in this situation. We're sacrificing and we're giving more and more and more, and it's never ending. Okay. And so think about the exceptions, those perfect storm exception weeks, sort of like a sprint, right? We run really, really hard. We get to the end, race is done. The Groundhog Day perfect storm situation resulting in burnout is where we approach it as a sprint, but it's actually a marathon. And we are so exhausted. And we're like, is this ever going to end? I don't have anything else to give, but I have to give. And that is what leads to burnout. Hopefully that makes sense, right? Let me know. Give me some comments at the end of this episode. Let me know if you're with me. I want to know how well this is applying to you, but I want these basic concepts, right? Because this fits any industry. It fits any level. It fits all of us. Exceptions, right? Perfect storm weeks, very small sprints. We can get through them. We've always gotten through them. What happens whenever we result and we get into burnout is when we think that we're facing a perfect storm week, but it actually ends up being this Groundhog Day perfect storm scenario where it just doesn't end. Okay. But we keep running at it like we're running a sprint, not realizing it's a marathon. All right. So the homework that you have this week, I'm going to give you some homework. This week's homework is nothing more than understanding what we just talked through, looking at your life and your career and everything through the lens of the information we just shared together, and understanding where are you? Are you in this Groundhog Day perfect storm? Are you in the middle of getting ready to be in a state of burnout? Are you already in a state of burnout? Or are you, it's smooth sailing, everything feels good, but you're just listening because you want to be able to avoid burnout in the future? There is no wrong answer, but we always have to look internally just to know where we are. So now we know how to apply the information that I'm sharing with you. All right. Okay. So that's your homework. I can't wait to come and hang out with you again next week. I'm going to be sharing great information. So please, again, you committed. So come hang out with me next week. As always, Go and be legendary.